This is the Cabal system. The Cabal system is a nearly uninhabited star system without public access and is currently claimed by the UEE. Formerly, it had been discovered, terraformed and settled by the Tevarin, but was abandoned by them before the First Tevarin War in 2541 for reasons unknown. The system was rediscovered by the UEE surveyors from Lear 400 years later in 2941. Within this system you will find the planet Cabal 3, a naturally occurring oxygen atmosphere terrestrial Earth analogue. UEE surveyors were stunned to find abandoned Tevarin cities on the planet. A further investigation of the planet by the UEE Marines revealed a cache of Tevarin weapons and war machines. Although it seems that the planet had been abandoned prior to the First Tevarin War, it appears that some of the cached weaponry was produced within the last 10 years. Due to these circumstances, the Cabal system remains inaccessible to citizens and civilians. So what did those Marines find on Cabal 3? Well, what they found was this.
With courage! For honor! In strength! To glory.
While much of what was discovered in the Cabal system remains classified today, what is known is that the researchers discovered 9 fully equipped squadrons of Prowler A's safely stored in bunkers. The investigation revealed that none of the Prowlers had flown for almost 5 centuries, and that they had been properly mothballed rather than abandoned at the site. Esperia's initial survey team reviewed the available spacecraft. In a culmination of initial study, a single vintage Prowler tested in a 45-minute atmospheric flight that confirmed the spacecraft were all fully functional. The remote stage of the project took 18 months, and at its conclusion, the government opted to ferry 6 of the Prowlers back to Esperia's clean lab at Gutarum rather than retain a team from Esperia on Cabal. Bird of prey. You never knew. That was the thing. You never knew, and you were never truly safe. There was no such thing as secure space anymore. Quote from Starman Peter Tutomi, UPES, Arrowhead. While the concept of open space holds the promise of discovery to some, it wasn't until the Tevarin initiated military hostilities that people began to truly fear the vast quiet. Large capital ships, normally bastions of security, were not immune to the threat that the Prowler posed. These quiet dropships would drop teams of Null, elite Tevarin boarders onto the hull of massive capital ships. These highly trained infiltrators and saboteurs would then breach the ships and wreak havoc inside. There are several documented cases where a Prowler loaded with Null successfully took down an entire naval capital ship. Needless to say, the fear of Tevarin boarding loomed over every ship throughout the war. Whispers of Null ferocity drove captains to double, even triple, their guard while flying through secure space. When the Tevarin were finally defeated in 2546, the Prowler's reputation took a different turn. Fear turned to fascination. The genius of the tech that would come to be known as air shields was woven seamlessly into the structure and by default function of the ship, and was a key factor in their effectiveness. Human ship technology of that era was relegated to launch tubes for fighters and isolated personnel carriers for troop deployment out of atmosphere, an unwieldy and time-consuming process. So while the humans were dragged down by their technology, the Tevarin were freed by it. Localized air shields along the body of the ship allowed for the Null to move from ship to space without needing to open a door, which permitted the Prowler to move quickly and quietly. The study and use of these air shields on the Prowler unlocked vast technological advances in human development, many of which are still in daily usage today. Rapid deployment. The ability to effectively position troops is one of the key elements to the success of any battle plan. This was a principle that the Tevarin perfected. According to many military historians, the Tevarin's ability to surgically place military assets quickly was their most decisive quality. In practice, the human military forces found themselves facing a shift in front. While Tevarin ground forces could be pressing from one direction, it would only take several Tevarin Prowlers to drop several units on the flanks and suddenly the front would change. By keeping the humans off balance, the Tevarin could dictate the tempo of the conflict. Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Steve, otherwise known as Pin, and we're finally going to take a look at the Esperia Prowler, a ship that has a very impressive combat record and some excellent lore to go along with it. I've always been a fan of this ship, never had the chance to make a video on it, but today that all changes. I am a fan of this ship, I am a fan of alien tech in general. It is my favourite type of ship in the verse because it allows the developers to free their minds and do things to a different standard that a human would. This ship is classified as a drop ship. I would argue it's more of a armoured personnel carrier with some really cool tech. It is supposed to be quite stealthy. At the moment we know stealth is broken. When that comes online, this drop ship, forward stroke APC, I think will be quite effective. It has plenty of firepower, and although two of the ballistic cannons underneath the wings are ballistic, therefore reducing your ammo, you do get a very long fire rate with those ballistic cannons. And don't forget, as an APC, when you're landing in a hot zone, you're not really going to be using those. The turret on the top can be operated by the co-pilot and pilot. You can access it as a remote turret, putting fire down for your troops. This is a very successful ship through both the first and second Tevarin war, This ship had the ability to cruise up to capital ships completely undetected and drop off elite troops from the Tevarins, who would then just wreak havoc on board those ships. So it has a very, very impressive pedigree within it. Its DNA is pretty formidable, and as you might have heard, this ship did strike fear into various members of the UE Navy at the time. It was a weapon of fear. Says it all, really. So it does have an illustrious career, and it does look fantastic. I really do like the look of this. Has that sort of bird feel to it with feathers. The developer referred to them as blades, but I'm going to say they look like feathers. The cockpit itself looks very bird-like, and internally you wouldn't be mistaken for feeling it resembles a bird's nest. Very, very cool ship indeed. It is supposed to have grav tech in the sense that you would get with a hover quad or a grav-lev bike. It doesn't work at the moment, which is kind of annoying, so I hope that they revisit this ship and give it the capabilities that it was supposed to have. Now here we can see this is the cockpit area of the ship, and it does have some very strong resemblances with that of the species that created it, and you can see that in what the Tevarins may or may not look like. I like the look of these, and you can sort of see how they've merged what they look like into the ships they design. You can see it with the Talons as well. Me personally, I like the middle. I think the middle Tevarin here looks the most menacing with those big eyes and that sort of demonic look. But you can see where the design philosophy has been shared between how the species look and the way they've incorporated that into their ship design. I think is a very nice touch indeed. Very interesting to see how this species will turn out within the verse. Inside then, it is pretty cool. The cockpit system and flight is amazing. It's like a handlebar with MFD strapped to it, and it does move and twist as the pilot and or co-pilot takes control of the ship. We do also get this classic Tevarin shield that covers the cockpit, and that will retract. Now on the Talon strikes, I believe that the cockpit itself can be fired off like an escape capsule, so that's a nice touch. I'm not entirely sure it works on this ship, but nonetheless I really enjoy the ambient feeling that you get in this cockpit. It's very that dark sort of red, not Vandal dark red, but still kind of the hostile vibe that you get from sitting in this cockpit. very ambient, dark, moody lighting. But other than that, it's actually quite a fairly simple cockpit system located on board the Prowler. So the cockpit does have some struts on the windshield area. I don't find them too intrusive. They're thin, they're black, they sort of blend into the blackness of the verse. So I don't find them too intrusive as I would on an RSI ship such as the Constellation, for example. They're sort of the same in the co-pilot seat as well. In the verse, when you're in the black, you don't really notice them. I don't find them too intrusive at all. To the rear of the vessel, we'll have the area where we're going to stow all of our elite troops, and as you can see, it is pretty simple in here. Does resemble the twigs of a bird nest in some respects, and there is a lot of the use of red colour here. It's very sort of ambient, quite immersive. Does give that combat sort of situation feeling and vibe that you get from this ship. Being in the back, there's plenty of room. Now don't forget that the Tevarins are a smaller species to humans, so when Esperia were redesigning this ship, I wonder if they had to make changes for the seats and holds for the human personnel, and I wonder if, because the Tevarin are smaller, were they able to carry more humans, more soldiers than the humans, which is an interesting point. So you'll have all your troops stationed in here. They can open the doors and they are still protected by the air shield tech. They can see out but you can't see in, which is very nice, but there is nothing to write home about in the rear of this ship. It is designed as an APC to drop off your elite troops and go kill things to death, and this ship will be more than capable of doing so. It's nicely lit. I haven't got a problem with the lighting at all. Very basic in here, but why would you need anything fancy? At the rear you can see that we have the sliding ramp and doors, which can also be used as a quick exit and entry point into the ship. So you can have troops leaving via the air shields under fire, or they can go down this back ramp which opens up and you can get troops out at the back. So overall, fairly basic internally, but is equipped with some excellent features. Grav-lev, we need to come online. Stealth, we definitely want to come online. We have a co-pilot that can operate the turret above the ship as it lands your elite troops and gives them cover in fire. So there's a lot of going for it. I think people that want to take a vehicle will almost certainly take the Valkyrie. For good reason. Vehicles can be extremely useful, but when you just want to maybe board a larger vessel, then the Prowler, with its proven pedigree and history, is obviously going to be the way to go. I don't think you're going to take your Valkyrie anywhere near a capital ship, whereas the Prowler has proven to do so on numerous occasions and successfully captured capital ships from the UEE. Now the other plus with this ship is, of course, we do get the excellent quantum travel, which is completely different from the humans, and I like that. It's a different edge and it's a different look, and it's something different in the verse when you're traveling to and from planets. So that is a very nice touch. It is a formidable ship, but just needs the love and attention that its lore provides to it. You know, it's kind of missing that appeal at the moment. So we can only hope that in the future that they bring this ship up to speed and give it the potential that we know that it has. But it is a fantastic ship. You can easily bounty hunt in this thing. It packs a ridiculous amount of firepower. You will have no complaints with the firepower found on board this ship. No missiles, but the cannons do plenty of damage, so there's no worry there. It is formidable in its own respect. There is an aspect to this ship that does draw me to it, and that's, in my mind, I would treat this ship as a space submarine. Now, what are the key attributes of a submarine? Stealth, obviously. Ridiculous firepower. Well, the Prowler's not exactly underarmed. And the ability to wreak havoc at a moment's notice should anyone foolish enough provoke you in the first place. That, for me, is probably why, if I was in an org, doesn't matter which size, because it can house up to 10 troops, I believe, off the top of my head, it doesn't need to be a massive org to run this, and you could still reap absolute havoc throughout the verse. Driving and flying up to a colony or a base, undetected, using the grav-lev technology, coming in nice and slow, undetected, is going to be a big part of that. The element of surprise is always key in any battle, and a few prowlers could easily turn the tide in that sort of situation. Also, in and around the verse, as previously discussed, this ship has taken down capital ships, and wouldn't it be interesting if 4 or 5 prowlers were able to board a Kraken, an Idris, a Bengal, whatever it might be. The prowler should be a prime candidate for that sort of situation. Now, there are other boarding ships on the way, but I just feel that this ship in particular is more than capable of taking down those larger vessels, and for gameplay it would be amazing. And as you can see, it is very bird-like in its appearance. You can see these circular sort of attachments to the vessel on the chassis. They're the grav-lev, which I really want them to get that working, because I think the prowler coming in to atmosphere, getting low, hugging the deck, and then activating that grav-lev tech to silently cruise up undetected to your potential victims is going to be such a fascinating way to play this game, and having the element of surprise will add so much more immersion. Sneaky ops, sneaky ops with an elite fire team on board this ship would be amazing. So let's hope that CIG revisit this ship, get the stealth working in general for all ships that are stealth, but in particular the Prowler, its potential will be amazing in and around the verse. I can see a lot of people having fun with this ship. It is a little bit pricey on the store. I don't agree with the price point at all, but it is almost certainly better than the rubbish that is the Cutlass Steel. I don't dislike many ships. I find them all to have their own pros and cons, but the Cutlass Steel is just no. That's a complete no. I will never cover that ship unless I absolutely have to. Back to the Prowler then. It looks menacing. It has the intricate sort of bird nest design in and around the neck of the cockpit, if we can call it the neck. Of course, we have the deadbolts hanging from the wings, the grav-lev tech, we have the air shields. So it's a fairly impressive ship. What we'll do now then, of course, is hop in and take a look at the internals of what you can expect to find on board the Prowler. And you are immediately greeted by that red. And here is the co-pilot seat, which is at the bottom of the cockpit. So we'll hop in and take a look. We have the nice chair animation. Again, the struts are so thin, they're not too interfering. But you can fly the ship without any problems, as you would expect it being a co-pilot seat. It pretty much mimics the complete interior of the cockpit for the pilot. We do have that shield, so maybe the pilot could leave his open and the co-pilot could then armor himself, and while he's doing that he will be able to hop into the remote turret if I can find the button. So we have all the normal stuff down here for the co-pilot. You're not missing out. You still have the functions of the various open airlocks, etc. But we can get into the turret, and here is where you would land. It has good gun depression at the back. Very good gun depression. So if possible, you would want to land the Prowler so that the rear of the ship is pointing the place that you're trying to quickly overrun with your troops, because you can put down some excellent firepower down here, but due to that excellent gun depression, which is a rare thing for a turret to have such good gun depression on most ships, but the fact that we have excellent gun depression here allows us to put rounds down very close to the rear of the ship. So ideally you would want to have that turret and the rear of the ship pointing towards the area you're trying to raid or take over for ground ops. That might not be an issue for boarding, we will see. But very bird nesty in here. People use that term quite a lot. I tend to agree. But the dropship is very simplistic inside. I say dropship, I'm going to stick with APC. And here is where you would strap in as a willing soldier. So we'll hop in like so. We've opened the exterior, and that's what you will look like. Obviously you'll be wearing some badass armor and you'll be armed to the teeth and, you know, look like you're meant for business. but very cool. And you can see there the feathers and blades that add excellent cover. So you could run straight through this shield and run straight to that blade or feather and take cover, put fire down, and that you get 4 of these on each side. And we get room for 2 more here and another 2 here. And then of course we have the ramp, which has also got the shield. And we can debus and go cause trouble this way as well. Completely protected by the turret gunner as he protects you while you debus. So it's a very nice touch. So we'll make our way back to the front of the ship and we will hop in the pilot seat. Now you might be thinking, well, how do I get in? You know, how? Where? Who? Why? Well, actually there's this ladder right here. And don't be too hard on yourself if you can't find it the first time, because believe it or not, I really couldn't find it for a long time because it's so well hidden and really, really like part of the structure of the ship. It just looked like part of the bird nest feature, but in fact it's a ladder. And once you get up here, you are greeted by the area occupied by the pilot, and there's not too much to brag home about here. So we'll just hop in the pilot seat. He's got his own space. And spin that around. Again, we've got the strut system, very unintrusive, the amount of struts that are actually here. MFDs nicely displayed, crystal clear. I like them. I do prefer MFDs with a hard plate behind them though, or like a hard standing area for you to read them off. But as digital displays go, projected, they're fairly good. I would argue they're better than the 600i's, which are a little bit too transparent for my taste, I feel. But other than that, there's really no complaints here. It's nicely laid out, everything's easy to read, the MFDs are nice and bright, and we do have access to all weapon systems in the pilot seat, as you can see there. So yeah, visibility, not terrible. It's not terrible. It's going to suit your needs for when you're attacking other players or other organisations. I really don't have any complaints with how the cockpit looks for the pilot at all. We do get the shield system as well, which is a nice touch. Very crystal clear, very basic, easy to read, and of course, as previously mentioned, we can get into the remote turret as well, which is good that the co-pilot and the pilot do both get access to that weapon system. So if one of you gets injured for whatever reason, or there's an accident, at least you can still put down fire for your troops as they deploy and go cause carnage. Okay guys, so that was my video on the Esperia Prowler, an excellent APC. I really hope they bring it up to speed. Hopefully they do. If you enjoyed today's video guys, you know what buttons to press, and of course I will have more Star Citizen content en route to your location very soon. Thanks for watching guys, take care, cheers.